I want to start by asking you a simple question. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, life just keeps pushing you down? Like you have big dreams, but the world feels too heavy to carry. If you've ever felt that way, you are not alone. I have felt that way too. Many of us carry silent struggles inside, worries about the future, fear of failure, and the pain of feeling unseen. There was a time when I didn't believe things could get better. I knew the rules of English, but I couldn't speak with confidence. I dreamed of success, but my pockets were empty, and my hope was small. I understand what it feels like to face rejection, loneliness, and moments when giving up seems easier than trying. Maybe you know that feeling too, the weight that stops you from moving forward. Today, I want to share a story with you. It is the story of a poor man who had nothing but big dreams. A man who faced failure after failure but still found a way to rise. This story is not just about English words or business. It is about life, about pain, hope, and courage. It is about how someone, just like you and me, found light in the darkest times. As we listen together, I invite you to go deeper with me. Let's think about the moments in life that test us, those times when the road feels long and lonely. Here's what I learned from this story. Success does not come from luck. It comes from the small, quiet steps we take when no one is watching. It comes from choosing to keep going, even when it hurts. So, if you are ready, let's begin this journey. Let's walk with this man who started with empty pockets but grew rich in heart. Let's learn from his courage and reflect on our own dreams. Because this story is not just his, it is ours. And it might just change the way you see your own life and your English learning journey. Welcome to Read and Learn English. Let's start. Chapter 1. The Boy with Empty Pockets and Big Dreams. He was born in a small, quiet village far from the noise of the city. The roads were dusty, the houses were made of wood and metal sheets, and the nights were filled with silence. His family lived in a 2-room house with thin walls and a leaking roof. When it rained, the water came in, and they used old pots to catch the drops. There was no fan, no fridge, no television. Sometimes there was not even enough rice to fill their plates. But the boy never cried. He had learned from a young age that crying did not change anything. His father worked in the town, cleaning streets and carrying heavy bags for strangers. He left early in the morning and returned after dark, with tired legs and sore hands. His mother worked in the fields under the hot sun. She carried water, planted seeds, and harvested crops. Her hands were rough, her feet were cracked, but her heart was soft. She smiled every time the boy came near, even when her back hurt and her stomach was empty. The boy watched his parents and learned one thing very early in life. Nothing comes easy. He wore the same clothes every day, a faded shirt and pants that were too short. His shoes had holes in them, and his school bag was torn at the sides. Other children laughed at him. Some called him poor boy. He did not answer back. He just looked down and kept walking. He went to school every morning, even when he was hungry. Even when he had no pen or notebook, he sat in the classroom and listened. He wanted to learn, not just to pass exams, but to change his life. One day, his teacher asked the class, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" The room was noisy with answers. Doctor! Teacher! Police! The children shouted. When it was his turn, the boy stood up slowly. He looked at the ground and said quietly, I want to be rich. I want to build a big house for my parents. I want to buy a fan for my mother. I want to see them rest. The class laughed. Even the teacher smiled. No one was angry, but no one believed him either. He sat down again, his face warm with shame, but inside, something remained strong. He did not stop dreaming. At night, he lay on the floor beside his parents, looking up at the broken ceiling, and imagined a better life. He saw a clean house with white walls and a strong roof. He saw his mother sitting in a soft chair, not in the dirt. He saw his father reading a newspaper, not carrying bags. He saw himself, dressed in clean clothes, standing tall, smiling. He didn't know how or when it would happen, but he held on to that picture. Each morning he woke up before the sun and helped his mother with the water. He walked to school barefoot when his shoes gave up. He studied under the tree when there was no space in the classroom. He asked questions, even when others laughed at him. He stayed back to learn extra, even when his stomach growled. He was not the smartest boy, but he was the hungriest, not for food, but for change. He wanted something more than just survival. He wanted meaning, success, freedom. Some of his friends stopped coming to school. They worked in the market or helped their families. One of them got married at 15. Another started drinking with the older boys. The boy watched them go, one by one. It was easy to give up. It was easy to follow the same path. But he stayed. He stayed because he believed there was more to life than the village. He stayed because his dream was not small. And even if no one else saw it, he did. On weekends, he walked to the town and looked at the big shops. He saw people dressed in nice clothes, buying things without thinking. He stood at the window and watched. He didn't want toys or sweets. He wanted to understand. He wanted to know how these people lived, how they made money, how they found comfort. He listened to their voices, their words. He looked at the way they walked with confidence. He didn't feel jealous. He felt curious. What did they know that he didn't? He started reading more, not just school books, but anything he could find, newspapers, old magazines, storybooks. He read slowly with effort. Every new word felt like a step forward. Every new idea gave him strength. He didn't have anyone to guide him. No tutor, no elder brother, no mentor. But he had a fire inside him that refused to go out. Even on the days when the rice was thin and his body was weak, he sat under the candlelight and read until his eyes hurt. His father once told him, "We don't have money, son, but you have your mind. That's your gold." He remembered those words like a song. His mother said, "One day you will leave this village. You will fly." He held on to that promise like a rope during a storm. Every kind word, every gentle hope became part of his bones. He didn't let the world's noise break him. He didn't let the laughter of others turn into anger. He just kept going. In the village, they called him strange. They said he didn't enjoy life like others. He didn't play, didn't waste time, didn't talk much. But he was not strange. He was focused. His eyes were not on today, but on tomorrow. He didn't want a small life. He didn't want to repeat the same pain. He wanted to build something new, and he was willing to suffer for it. He was willing to wait. He was willing to grow. Years passed, and the boy remained the same. quiet, hard-working, and full of dreams. He was still poor. He still had empty pockets. But something inside him had changed. His dream was no longer just a picture in his mind. It had become a decision. He would not let poverty win. He would not stay small forever. He would find a way, no matter how long it took. And so, with tired feet but a strong heart, he prepared to take his first big step, to leave the village and walk a road that no one else dared to walk. Chapter 2. The Road. Nobody wanted to walk. He left the village with nothing but a small bag and a big dream. His mother gave him some cooked rice wrapped in banana leaves. His father gave him the last money he had, only enough for one bus ride. There were tears in their eyes, but no words. The boy had grown up with struggle. He was used to pain. But this moment felt different. It was the first time he was going far from home, with no one to protect him, no one to guide him. The road ahead was long, and he didn't know what he would find. Still, he walked forward, step by step, holding his dream like fire in his heart. The city was loud, crowded, and fast. It smelled of smoke, oil, and sweat. People walked quickly. Cars honked without stopping. Tall buildings surrounded him, and he felt small. He looked around and realized something. No one cared who he was. In the city, everyone was busy. Everyone was trying to survive. It was not like his village, where people knew each other. Here, he was just another face in the crowd. He didn't feel afraid, but he did feel alone. He needed a job. He had no degree, no experience, and no skills. Just a strong body and a willing heart. He walked into shops and asked if they needed help. Most said no. Some didn't even look at him. Others laughed and said, "You're too young." One man said, "Go back to your village. This city is not for people like you." But the boy didn't go back. He remembered his promise to his mother. He remembered the dream that made him leave. So, he kept asking. After 3 days of walking and searching, he found a tea shop looking for a helper. The owner was a strict man with a loud voice. He said, "You'll clean tables, wash cups, and serve tea. No rest, no free food. If you work hard, you stay. If not, you leave." The boy nodded. It was not what he wanted, but it was a start. He slept on the floor at night beside the shop's kitchen. It was hot, and the smell of old food filled the air, but he didn't complain. He had a job. That was enough. The days were long and tiring. He woke up before sunrise and worked until midnight. He carried heavy buckets of water, cleaned toilets, and listened to angry customers. Sometimes he burned his hands with hot tea. Sometimes people shouted at him for mistakes he didn't make. No one said thank you. No one asked his name. But every night, before closing his eyes, he whispered to himself, "One day, this will change." And then he slept. After 2 months, he had saved a little money. Not much, but enough to eat better and buy one new shirt. On his only day off, he visited the bookstore and stood outside. He couldn't afford the books, but he read the titles through the glass. He wanted to learn. He wanted to grow. One day, the shopkeeper saw him and gave him an old, used book for free. It was a business book, full of words he didn't understand, but he read it slowly, using a small dictionary he bought second-hand. He didn't read for fun. He read to survive. He worked at the tea shop for 1 year. He saved every coin he could. He lived simply, spent nothing on comfort, and kept his dream alive. But he wanted more. He wanted to learn new things, take on new work, and move forward. So he left the tea shop and started looking again. This time, he had some experience, but the rejections were still many. People asked for diplomas, computer skills, and fluent English. He had none. All he had was his story. And most people didn't care about stories. He finally found a job at a warehouse, carrying boxes from trucks. The work was harder than before. His hands were cut and bruised. His back ached every night. He worked with men who drank, shouted, and fought. He didn't join them. He just did his work and stayed quiet. Some called him boring. Some said he was proud. But he knew who he was. He was not there to make friends. He was there to build a future. At night, he walked home alone. He lived in a small, shared room with 5 other workers. There was no space to breathe, no place to rest. The fan didn't work. The food was bad. The noise never stopped. He missed his village. He missed the stars. He missed his mother's voice. Sometimes he felt like crying, but he didn't. He reminded himself why he came. He reminded himself that this road was not easy, but it was the road to his dream. He bought more used books and started learning basic business words. He learned how companies work, how money grows, and how ideas become reality. He didn't understand everything, but he didn't give up. Every new word was a small victory. Every page was a step forward. He believed knowledge was the key to escape. He believed effort was the only price for success, and he was willing to pay it. People didn't notice him. He was just another poor boy working hard. But inside, he was changing. He was becoming stronger, smarter, and more patient. The road he walked was full of pain, but also full of purpose. He had nothing, but he felt rich in one way. He had direction. One night, after work, he stood by the roadside and looked up. The city lights covered the stars, but he could still imagine them. He whispered, "I'm not there yet, but I'm not lost." He didn't know when his life would change. He didn't know how long it would take, but he was not waiting for luck. He was building himself, step by step. He had chosen the road nobody wanted to walk. It was lonely, hard, and slow, but it was real. And it was his. Chapter 3. Learning from pain, not just books. Life in the city did not get easier. The boy, now a young man, worked every day with tired legs and a heavy heart. But still, he didn't stop. He carried boxes, cleaned floors, and served others. The money was small, the hours were long, but he was learning, not from a school, not from a classroom, but from pain. And sometimes, pain teaches faster than any book. One morning, the manager at the warehouse shouted at him for a mistake he didn't make. Someone else had broken a box, but the blame came to him. He wanted to speak, to explain, but the manager didn't listen. "If you don't like it, leave," the man said. That day, he stood outside the warehouse in the hot sun with no job, no salary, and no idea what to do next. He had been honest. He had worked hard, but still, life had pushed him down. That was his first lesson. Hard work does not always protect you from unfair things. He spent the next week walking through streets again, asking for work. He knocked on doors, waited for hours, and ate only one meal a day to save money. He felt like a failure, but deep inside, he also felt something else: growth. He was no longer afraid of rejection. Every no made him stronger. Every closed door made him more patient. That was the second lesson. Rejection is not the end. It's just part of the journey. After days of searching, he found a small shop that sold secondhand phones. The owner said he could help clean, organize stock, and maybe learn about phones. The pay was low, but the boy accepted. He started noticing how people bought and sold phones. He watched how the owner spoke to customers. He listened carefully. When the shop was quiet, he asked questions. How do you check if a phone is real? How do you fix broken screens? How do you talk to customers? The owner didn't teach much, but the boy learned by watching. That was another lesson. If you stay curious, the world becomes your teacher. One evening, a man came to sell his phone. The owner was busy, so the boy handled it. He checked the phone like he had seen others do. He offered a price and made the deal. The owner later checked and smiled. Not bad, he said. For the first time, someone saw value in his effort. It was a small win, but it felt big. That day, he walked home feeling taller. He wasn't just a worker anymore. He was someone learning a skill, a useful skill, something that could change his future. But not every day brought wins. Some days were full of mistakes. He once gave the wrong price for a phone, and the shop lost money. The owner was angry and almost fired him. He felt ashamed. That night, he sat alone and asked himself, "Am I really good enough?" It was a quiet question, but it cut deep. He thought about quitting, about going back home, but something stopped him. Maybe it was his mother's face. Maybe it was the promise he had made to himself. He stayed, and he worked harder. That was the next lesson. Failure is painful, but it doesn't have to stop you. He saved small amounts of money and bought broken phones from the market. At night, he tried to fix them. He used tools he borrowed from the shop. Sometimes he made things worse, but sometimes he made them work again. He watched videos on old phones, read repair tips, and asked questions in forums. No one taught him step by step, but he kept trying. His fingers were cut, his eyes were tired, but he smiled when a phone turned on again. He was building something: skill, confidence, and quiet pride. He began to understand something important. Books give knowledge, but pain gives wisdom. Books teach rules, but life teaches reality. And the reality was this: if he wanted to grow, he had to keep learning, not just from books, but from every mistake, every loss, every moment of doubt. Learning was not something that happened in school. It happened in life, every single day. One day, he helped a customer who came with a broken phone. The man had gone to 3 other shops, and no one could fix it. The boy tried something different. He took his time, stayed calm, and used everything he had learned. After 30 minutes, the phone started working again. The customer smiled with surprise. "You're good," he said. "You should start your own shop someday." Those words stayed in the boy's heart like a light. Someone believed in him. And sometimes, that's all a person needs. One voice saying, "You can." That night, he sat on the roof of his small building. The city lights were shining. The air was warm. He looked up at the sky and remembered his old dream. The house, the fan, the smile on his mother's face. It was still far away. But now it didn't feel impossible. He was no longer just dreaming. He was doing. Slowly, with mistakes and pain, he was learning how to move forward. He began writing in a small notebook, not stories, but lessons. Every time he failed, he wrote what he learned. Every time he succeeded, he wrote how it happened. That notebook became his teacher. It held the truth of his journey, the pain, the fight, the small wins. It reminded him that he was not the same boy who left the village. He had changed. He was stronger, smarter, and more ready than ever before. He still had no degree. He still had little money. But he had something that many people didn't, the courage to keep going even when it hurt. And in that courage, he found his power. Because real success doesn't begin with luck. It begins with lessons, the ones you earn, not the ones you read. Chapter 4. The First Door That Opened. He had spent months working at the small phone shop, learning in silence. Every repair, every sale, every mistake taught him something. His hands had become faster, his eyes sharper. He could now tell what was wrong with a phone just by touching it or listening to how it started. The shop owner noticed his growth. He said little, but he began trusting the boy with more. Some days, he left the boy alone in the shop. The boy would run the business like it was his own. He welcomed customers, fixed problems, and kept the place clean and organized. It wasn't his shop, but he treated it like it was. One afternoon, a man walked into the store holding a box of broken phones. He looked serious. His clothes were clean and simple, and he carried a laptop bag. He said, "I work for a small company. We collect old electronics from offices. Sometimes we fix them and sell them again. But we don't have a repair person. Can you fix these?" He opened the box. Inside were 10 old phones and 3 tablets. Some had broken screens. Others didn't turn on at all. The boy looked at the devices carefully. He turned one of the phones over, opened the back, checked the battery. He said, "I can try. I can't promise all will work, but maybe 5 or 6. The man smiled. "You have 3 days," he said. "If you can fix even half, we'll pay you. And if the work is good, maybe we can work again." The boy worked all night. He didn't sleep much. He opened each phone carefully, cleaned them, changed parts, and tested them again and again. Some were beyond repair, but others came back to life. He used everything he had learned in the past year. On the 3rd day, he returned 6 working phones and 1 tablet. The man was surprised. "You did this alone?" he asked. The boy nodded. "Yes," he said, "with basic tools. I tried my best." The man handed him cash, more than 2 weeks of his normal salary. That was the first time the boy saw what his skill could do. Until now, he had only worked for others, following orders, doing what he was told. But now, someone had come to him, not as a helper, but as a problem solver. Someone had trusted him to deliver something important. He had felt pressure, he had felt fear, but he had also felt alive. A week later, the man returned with more devices and another small box of cash. "My boss is happy," he said. "Would you be open to fixing 10 to 15 phones every week?" The boy's heart jumped. He was still working full-time at the phone shop, but this felt different. This felt like something new, a small door opening, not wide, not bright, but open. He spoke to the shop owner. He was honest. "Sir, I want to work here, but I also want to try fixing these phones in the evening. It helps me earn more. Is that okay?" The owner looked at him for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "You've earned it," he said. "Just don't let it affect your work here." The boy agreed. From that day, his days became longer and harder, but also more hopeful. He now had 2 jobs. During the day, he worked at the shop. At night, he fixed devices for the company. Sometimes he worked until 2 in the morning. His fingers hurt, and his eyes were tired, but his heart was full. Every time he repaired a phone, he felt like he was building something, not just the device, but his future. He saved every extra coin. He didn't buy new clothes. He didn't go out with others. He didn't waste time. He had a new goal: to buy better tools, real tools, the kind professionals used. Until now, he had been using second-hand screwdrivers and borrowed kits, but he knew he could do better work with better tools. After 2 months, he had saved enough. He visited a shop in the city and bought a full repair set. When he opened the box that night, he smiled like a child with a gift. It was the first thing he had ever bought only for himself, and it was for his work. The company kept sending more phones. Soon, they told him, you don't need to fix all of them. Just tell us which ones are possible. You decide. That trust gave him confidence. It made him feel like a real professional. He started organizing his work, writing reports, noting the time he spent on each device. Without realizing it, he was learning how to manage a small business. Then one day, the man from the company asked him a new question. Have you ever thought about opening your own shop? The boy looked up, surprised. He had thought about it. Many times. But it always felt too far away, too big, too difficult. He said, maybe someday. I don't have the money. Or the place. The man replied, if you ever want help, I can talk to someone. We know people who support small business ideas. That night, the boy couldn't sleep. His body was tired, but his mind was full of thoughts. Maybe this was the moment he had been waiting for. Maybe this small door, this one job from one man, was the start of something greater. He had worked for years, failing, learning, waiting. Now, for the first time, someone was asking him about his future, not with doubt, but with belief. He sat on the edge of his bed and looked at his hands. They were rough, marked with small cuts and burns. But they were strong. They were skilled. And now, they had opened a door. He didn't rush to answer. He didn't quit his job. He didn't make big promises. He just kept working. Quietly, carefully, with focus. But inside, something had changed. He now knew that opportunity doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the form of a box of broken phones. And when it does, the question is simple. Will you step through the door? He had chosen to say yes. Chapter 5. The day he almost gave up. There was a day he would never forget. It began like any other, with the sound of his alarm and the dull ache in his back. He had been sleeping on the floor for months. The small room he rented was dark, the paint on the walls peeling, and the air heavy with silence. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face with tired hands. His heart felt heavy, and his mind was filled with thoughts he didn't want to face. For weeks now, everything had been going wrong. No new clients, no money, just a long, painful silence from the world. He looked at his phone. No missed calls, no new messages. Only a reminder to pay his rent. Money he didn't have. He had been trying to sell his small service to local businesses, offering to help with marketing, design, or anything else he could learn quickly. But people didn't take him seriously. He had no degree, no office, and no fancy clothes, just dreams and hard work. And sometimes, that wasn't enough. He walked to the small tea shop nearby. He didn't order anything. He just sat in the corner, pretending to wait for someone. He didn't want to go back to that empty room. He didn't want to hear the voice in his head that kept saying, "Maybe you're not good enough." He watched people walk by. Some were smiling, some were holding hands, some looked busy. He felt like he didn't belong in that world, the world of people who were winning. Later that evening, he returned to his room. The light bulb above him flickered. He sat on the floor with his notebook, the same one he had used since the beginning. It was filled with plans, goals, ideas. He flipped through the pages slowly. Some dreams had already died. Others looked silly now. He put the notebook down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. A strong feeling of hopelessness came over him. His chest felt tight. His eyes burned. And then, for the first time in years, he cried. Not the quiet kind of cry, but the deep kind that comes from pain that has been hidden for too long. He cried because he was tired. He cried because he felt alone. He cried because he didn't know what else to do. The world was quiet, but inside him, there was a storm. He thought about giving up. He thought about going back to his village and working in the fields. At least there he would not be so alone. At least there he wouldn't feel like a failure every day. Maybe dreams were for other people, not for someone like him. He stayed on the floor for a long time. Then, slowly, he picked up a photo. It was an old picture of him with his mother. She was smiling, holding his face in her hands. She had always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. She once told him, "The world may forget you, but I never will. Keep going, even when it's hard." He looked at the photo for a long time. Her eyes looked kind. Her smile gave him a little warmth. In that moment, he realized something. He had been chasing success so hard, he had forgotten why he started. It was never about money or fame. It was about proving that someone like him, someone poor, someone with no support, could still do something great. That night, something changed inside him. He didn't feel strong. He didn't feel smart. But he felt something better, clear. For the first time in a long time, he saw his pain not as a wall, but as a teacher. Every failure, every rejection, every lonely night, they were teaching him something. They were shaping him into someone stronger, someone wiser. He stood up, washed his face, and cleaned the room. He threw out old papers, cleaned the floor, and even fixed the flickering light bulb. It wasn't much, but it made him feel a little better, like he had control over something. Then he sat down and opened his notebook again. He didn't cross out the old dreams. He wrote a new one. "I will build something that helps people like me." It was simple. It was honest. And it was enough to give him a reason to keep going. The next morning, the world was the same, but he was different. He still had no money. He still had no big business. But he had something he had lost. Belief. Not just belief in dreams, but belief in himself. He started making small changes. He woke up earlier. He walked instead of taking the bus. He read free online articles instead of paying for courses. He talked to people kindly, even when they ignored him. And slowly, things began to change. Not fast, not big, but just enough to show him that effort still mattered. He remembered something he had once heard. Sometimes, the darkest nights bring the brightest mornings. He still had a long road ahead. There would still be pain, still be rejection. But now he had something inside him that couldn't be taken away. The decision to continue. The promise to himself that he wouldn't stop, no matter how hard it got. Because the truth was, he had already walked through hell, and if he could survive that night, the night he almost gave up, then he could survive anything. And maybe, just maybe, the world hadn't seen the best of him yet. Chapter 6. Turning Pain into Power. He sat in silence, staring at the cracked wall in front of him. The small room felt colder than usual. It was not because of the weather. It was because of something inside him. Something had changed. The pain of failure still lived in his heart. The shame, the loneliness, and the fear were still there. But that night, something else started to grow. A quiet decision. He would not run anymore. He would not give up. He would turn his pain into power. The next morning, he woke up early. The sun had not even risen, but he was already on his feet. For the first time in weeks, he made his bed. He opened the window and let the morning air touch his face. It felt fresh, like a new start. He sat at his small table and picked up a notebook. It was empty, but he was ready to fill it, not with dreams, but with plans. He made a list, not a wish list, but a plan list. What could he learn? What skills could he grow? What mistakes had he made, and what could he change? He wrote down every little detail. He wrote like a man who had nothing left to lose, but everything to gain. The old him used to complain. The new him wanted to create. He found free lessons online. He read books at the local library. He watched videos on how to manage money, how to start small businesses, how to communicate better. Every night, while the world slept, he studied, not just with his eyes, but with his whole heart. He was learning again, but not like before. This time, he was learning for survival. This time, it mattered. He also started walking more, not just for exercise, but to think. During these walks, he talked to himself. What can I do better? He would ask. What is the next step? His thoughts were no longer full of fear. Now they were filled with questions, and those questions slowly brought answers. One day, he returned to the place where he had worked as a cleaner. He saw the same manager who had once offered him leftover food. Instead of feeling small, he smiled and said, "Thank you." The manager was surprised. "You look different," he said. "What are you up to these days?" The boy didn't speak of dreams anymore. They spoke of plans, real steps he was taking, and that made the manager listen. A week later, the manager called him. "There's a friend of mine who needs someone to manage a small shop," he said. "It's not a big job, but I thought of you." The shop was small. It sold basic goods like soap, snacks, and drinks. The owner was old and wanted someone young to help run things. It paid just enough to survive. But to him, it felt like the first step of something big. He said yes. Running the shop was not easy. He had to wake up early and close late. He had to deal with difficult customers, keep track of money, and clean the place every day. But he didn't complain. He saw every challenge as a lesson. If something went wrong, he asked himself why. If a customer was unhappy, he learned how to fix the problem. Slowly, he became better. After a few months, the shop started doing better. The owner noticed it too. "You're not just working hard," he said one day. "You're working smart." That sentence stayed with him. Working smart. That's what he was learning to do. With a little extra money from the shop, he bought secondhand books and tools. He studied sales. He practiced speaking politely. He learned how to keep better records. And more importantly, he started to save. Even if it was just a little each month, he saved. Some nights were still hard. Some days he felt tired and alone. But now he had something he never had before: purpose. He was not just trying to survive anymore. He was building something. Something bigger than money or success. He was building strength. He was building character. Months passed. One evening, he looked in the mirror. He barely recognized the person staring back. He was still poor, still far from success. But he stood taller. His eyes were not full of fear, but of quiet power. The power of someone who had faced failure and refused to stay down. One day, while working at the shop, a customer came in who was struggling with money. She looked tired and worried. Her little boy was hungry, and she didn't have enough to buy food. He remembered his own days of hunger. Without thinking, he gave her what she needed and said, "It's okay. Just pay when you can." The woman looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. He simply smiled. That moment reminded him of something important. Becoming rich wasn't just about money. It was about heart. It was about helping others even when you had little. He didn't just want to be a successful man. He wanted to be a kind one. He continued to work. He continued to learn. He continued to help. And slowly, without noise or fame, his life began to change. Not because someone saved him, not because luck found him, but because he chose to rise when he had every reason to fall. His pain had not destroyed him. It had shaped him. Every tear, every failure, every lonely night, they had given him the strength he needed. The road was still long, but he was no longer afraid to walk it. He had turned his pain into power. Chapter 7: The First Business That Failed and Taught Everything. He had worked for others for many years. He saved every small amount he could. Every night, he dreamed of doing something on his own. Not because he wanted to be famous, but because he wanted freedom. He wanted to build something that was truly his. One day, he decided to take the risk. He used all the money he had saved and started his first small business. It was a small food stall near a busy bus stop. He rented a small space and bought some second-hand cooking tools. He didn't hire anyone. He did everything by himself: cooking, cleaning, serving, and even managing money. His hands moved fast, but his heart moved faster. For the first time, he felt like he was walking toward his dream. At first, things looked good. People came. Some liked the food. Some even came back again. Each returning customer felt like a medal. He smiled at everyone. He tried to remember their names. He offered them extra sauce without charging. He didn't just want to sell food. He wanted to make people feel welcome. But soon, problems started coming, one by one. A bigger food shop opened nearby with cheaper prices and more choices. Many of his customers stopped coming. Rainy days came, and with no proper shelter, customers didn't want to stand and eat in the rain. Sometimes the vegetables he bought in the morning went bad by evening because he didn't have a fridge. Some nights, he had to throw away all the food because no one came. He felt tired, not just in his body, but in his mind. He started waking up with fear. Would today be another bad day? Could he pay rent this week? Would he have to close everything soon? He didn't tell anyone about his troubles. People around him still said, "You're brave. You finally started your own business." But deep inside, he felt like he was slowly falling. He tried many small changes. He added new items to the menu. He gave small discounts. He worked longer hours, but the results didn't improve. Expenses stayed high, and income stayed low. Every day he earned less than he spent. His small savings began to disappear. He cut down his meals to one a day. He slept on the stall floor to save rent. Still, the business kept sinking. One evening, a kind old man came to his stall. He didn't buy anything. He just sat and watched. After some time, the old man walked up to him and said, "You have good energy, but your plan is weak." The words hit him like lightning, not because they were rude, but because they were true. He closed the stall that night and sat on the sidewalk. He thought about every mistake he had made. He realized he never studied the area well before opening. He didn't check what kind of food people really wanted. He didn't calculate daily costs properly. He had passion but no planning, and passion alone could not keep a business alive. The next morning, he made a decision. He would close the stall. It was the hardest decision he ever made. He felt like he was breaking a piece of his heart, but deep inside, he knew it was the right thing to do. He packed up everything, sold what little he could, and paid off some debts. He didn't call it the end. He called it Lesson 1. It was a lesson that no book had ever taught him. It taught him about money, planning, people, and pain. It taught him that success is not just about trying hard, it's about trying smart. He promised himself one thing. Next time, I will prepare better. Days passed. He went back to doing small jobs again. He saved money again. But this time, he also read business books. He watched videos. He asked questions. He learned how to make a plan, how to calculate costs, how to find the right place, and how to study customers. He started becoming not just a dreamer, but a student of life. Many people would have given up. But he didn't. He failed, yes. But he failed forward. That failure became his foundation. It gave him eyes that could see more clearly. It gave him ears that listened better. It gave him a heart that knew pain, and that pain made him wiser. He kept the empty spoon from his stall as a reminder. It hung in his small room, and every time he looked at it, he remembered that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. One day he smiled and said to himself, "That food stall didn't feed others, but it fed my future." And with that thought, he began to dream again. But this time, he dreamed with open eyes, a pen in hand and a plan on paper. The road was still long, but now he wasn't afraid of falling, because he had already fallen once and learned how to get up. Chapter 8. The Silent Years of Growth. He woke up every morning before the sun. There was no applause, no one watching, and no promise that things would work out. But he had made a decision. He would keep going, even when no one saw, even when no one clapped. These were the silent years, the long stretch of time when life felt slow, repetitive, and invisible. He was not famous. He was not rich. He was not even successful yet. But he was growing, slowly, quietly, deeply. After the failure of his first business, he knew that starting again would not be easy. He had learned that success was not built on one lucky chance, but on habits, patience, and a mindset that didn't give up. So, he started small, very small. He worked part-time jobs to pay the bills, and every extra hour he had, he spent learning, researching, and building his second idea. It wasn't a big idea. It wasn't a world-changing product. It was a small service business. He started fixing things, old radios, fans, phones, anything people brought to him. Word spread slowly in the neighborhood. One customer told another. Sometimes he got paid, sometimes he didn't, but every broken item taught him something about patience, about solving problems, and about earning trust. He also changed how he lived. No more showing off, no more pretending. He spent less money, ate simple meals, and saved every extra coin. He rented a tiny space, just enough for his tools and a mat to sleep. He didn't buy new clothes. He didn't go out. While others spent their evenings watching TV or scrolling on their phones, he was studying online tutorials, reading repair manuals, and improving his skills. There were no lights around him, no stage, and no praise. But inside, something powerful was happening. He was becoming disciplined. Discipline became his superpower. He started setting goals, not big goals, but small, daily ones. Fix this by noon, learn this by evening, sleep by 10. Day after day, these little rules shaped his life. And slowly, the results started to show. Customers began trusting him. They started leaving tips. Some gave him second-hand parts which he used to make better tools. A local store gave him a contract to fix their used electronics. It wasn't much money, but it was steady. For the first time, he felt like something was moving forward. But it was still lonely. Friends had moved on. Some got jobs. Some got married. Some stopped calling. He was still in the same city, in the same small room, doing the same quiet work. There were days when he wondered, is this what success looks like? There were no fast results, no overnight wins, just effort, routine, and silence. But he remembered something his father once told him. A tree doesn't grow faster just because you shout at it. It grows in silence. But it grows. That memory kept him going. He also started helping others quietly. When a boy from the street asked for work, he didn't say no. He taught him how to fix wires. When an old man couldn't pay for a fan repair, he said, "It's free." Helping others didn't make him rich, but it made him feel useful. It gave him a purpose. It reminded him that even when you are small, you can still make someone's day better. And that meant everything to him. Over time, he became better at managing money. He started keeping records. He learned how to bargain with suppliers, how to offer warranties, and how to keep customers coming back. He didn't hire many people, but he trained a few. He didn't expand quickly, but he grew slowly. His work became trusted. People began saying, "Go to him." He's honest. He also took care of his health. He began walking in the morning, doing basic exercises, and eating better. He knew that if he didn't take care of himself, he couldn't take care of his dream. Success, he realized, wasn't just about money. It was about building a life. A strong mind, a healthy body, a clean heart. These silent years gave him that foundation. The most beautiful part of these years was not what he earned, but who he became. He became calm. He stopped comparing himself to others. He learned to enjoy his own company. He became more grateful for a working light bulb, for a good night's sleep, for a customer's smile. These small joys kept his heart warm, even when the world felt cold. One day, without realizing it, he looked around and saw something different. He was no longer struggling just to survive. He had savings. He had repeat customers. He had skills people respected. He had a team of 2 boys who looked up to him. He had built something, not big, not famous, but solid, and he had built it with no shortcuts, no cheating, and no noise, just silent, honest effort. He didn't know what the future would bring. He didn't know if success would ever come in the way others dreamed about. But he knew one thing. He was no longer the boy who waited for miracles. He was the man who built quietly, trusted deeply, and grew slowly, like the tree his father once spoke of. In the silent years, when no one saw, he had grown roots, and now he was ready to rise. Chapter 9. The Big Break That Changed It All. For many years he worked quietly, slowly, day by day, fixing small things, saving small amounts of money, and learning more about life and business. People started to trust him. His small repair shop grew little by little, but he never expected a big change to come suddenly. It came one ordinary morning, like a surprise gift from the sky. A young woman walked into his shop. She was wearing a clean white shirt and carried a big bag. She looked worried and tired. "My phone broke," she said. "I need it fixed fast. I have important work to do." The man smiled kindly and said, "I will do my best." He carefully looked at the phone. It was badly damaged. Most repair shops would say it was impossible to fix. But he didn't give up. He worked carefully, step by step. He took his time. He stayed calm. After 2 days, he called the woman. "Your phone is ready." When she came back, she looked surprised. The phone worked perfectly. She smiled and said, "You saved me. Thank you." But the story did not end there. The woman worked for a large company that needed someone to repair hundreds of phones every month. She told her boss about him. Soon the company called him. They wanted to see if he could help them regularly. It was a big opportunity. If he succeeded, his small shop would grow fast. But he felt nervous. Could he do it? Could he handle such a big job? He remembered all his hard work. He remembered the pain, the failures, the silent years. He decided to try. He worked harder than ever. He hired a few helpers and trained them well. He made a plan to repair phones faster but carefully. He bought better tools and new parts. He organized his shop to be clean and efficient. The first month was hard. Sometimes phones came with new problems. Sometimes workers made mistakes. Sometimes customers were unhappy. But he stayed patient. He fixed every mistake. He listened to every complaint. He never gave up. Slowly, the company became happy with his work. They gave him bigger contracts. They told others about him. His phone repair business grew fast. He was no longer just a small shop owner. He was now running a real company with many workers and many customers. People started calling him the best phone repairman in the city. His name spread, and money began to come in. But with success came new challenges. Some people wanted to cheat him. Some workers wanted to take shortcuts. Some customers wanted more than he could give. Sometimes the pressure was too much. He felt tired and worried. But he remembered a promise he made to himself. Stay humble. Stay honest. No matter how big his company became, he would never forget where he came from. He always treated his workers like family. He listened to their problems. He helped them learn and grow. He did not become proud or angry. He remembered the days when he had nothing and no one. He knew that true success was not just about money. It was about kindness, respect, and hard work. He also gave back to the community. He helped young boys and girls who wanted to learn a skill. He gave free training and tools to those who could not afford them. He supported small families who were struggling. He believed that helping others was the best way to grow. Every day, he thanked the small moments that made the big success possible. The long nights fixing phones, the empty stomachs, the lonely walks. He knew that success was not a sudden gift, but the result of many small steps. He was proud, not of the money or the company, but of the man he had become. And in the quiet moments, when no one was watching, he would sit and think about his journey. From a poor boy with empty pockets to a man who ran a big business. He knew that success was a story of pain, learning, and courage. A story he wanted to share with others. He hoped that his story would inspire those who were still struggling, to show them that no matter how hard life is, no matter how many times you fall, you can rise again. You can open doors that you never thought existed, and you can become more than you ever dreamed. Success had finally arrived, but he knew it was only the beginning, the real work. To stay humble, to keep learning, and to keep helping was still ahead. Chapter 10. Rich in heart, not just in wallet. After many years of hard work, the man had become rich, not just in money, but in life. His business was growing, and he had more than he ever dreamed of. But the most important thing he had was something money could not buy: kindness, patience, and a strong heart. He remembered the boy he once was, the boy with empty pockets and big dreams, the boy who struggled, failed, and cried alone in a small, dark room. That boy was still inside him. He never forgot where he came from. He never forgot the pain that taught him how to grow. Now, he used his success to help others. Every month he set aside money to support young people who wanted to learn but had no chance. He gave free training in his shop. He shared his tools and knowledge. Many boys and girls came to him, hoping to find a way out of poverty. He welcomed them like family. He also helped poor families in his neighborhood. When someone was sick and needed medicine, he would help. When children needed school supplies, he bought them. He did not show off. He did these things quietly, like the wind, soft but strong. People in the community respected him. They saw not only a successful businessman, but a kind man who cared. He was a proof that money was not the only way to measure success. What mattered most was how much you gave back to the world. One day, a young man came to him. He was nervous but hopeful. "Sir," he said, "I want to start my own business, but I don't know where to begin." The man smiled kindly. "Let me tell you a secret," he said. "Success is not about the money. It is about your heart. If you have a kind heart and a strong will, you can overcome any problem." He told the young man about his own journey, the hard times, the failures, the lonely nights. He told him how important it was to learn from pain and never stop trying. "There will be days you want to give up," he said, "but keep going, one step at a time. That is the way." He also shared a simple lesson. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Be honest, be patient, and be humble. If you build your business with respect, it will last. The young man listened carefully. He felt inspired. Before he left, the man gave him a small notebook. "Write your plans here," he said, "and never forget to dream." As he watched the young man leave, the man felt peace. He knew his story had a purpose. It was not just about becoming rich. It was about helping others find their own path. It was about lighting a candle in the dark for those who still walked alone. He often thought about what true success meant. It was not the number in his bank account. It was the smiles he saw in his community. It was the hope he helped build in young hearts. It was the love he gave and received. He knew that life's journey never ends. There would always be new challenges, new lessons, new dreams, but now he was ready to face whatever came with courage and kindness. And so, the boy who once had empty pockets became a man rich in heart. His story was proof that no matter where you start, with patience, hard work, and a good heart, you can change your life and the lives of many others. Thank you for listening to this story. Remember, your journey is just beginning. Keep learning English, keep growing, and keep shining your light in the world. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope this story touched your heart and gave you more than just English words. Maybe it gave you a little hope, a reminder that no matter where you start, you can keep moving forward. Remember, learning English is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about growing as a person, understanding life better, and finding courage inside yourself. If this story spoke to you, I want you to know it's okay to feel tired sometimes. It's okay to have moments when you want to give up. What matters most is what you do next. Will you take one small step? Will you try again tomorrow? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin. You are not alone on this journey. Every time you listen, read, or practice, you are getting stronger in English and in life. This channel, Read